So if you had a neuropsychiatric disorder or a mental illness, you were thought as having been punished by the gods, and people became afraid of you because of that.
They are biological problems in that no one chooses mental illness. Mental illness is not a function of someone having a weak character or being possessed by a devil or something.
Psychiatry was used to justify slavery in the beginning. There's cultural differences in how people see psychiatric illness. A lot of people still see it as not a real thing, especially when mental health care is unavailable. The way you think about people with mental illness is you think about someone who has to be hospitalized. I think there's a lot of different stigma associated by how much we remove access to care and then only treat patients who are severely, severely ill. Atypical behavior and social behavior that leads to inherent isolation.
Meanwhile, they're living here, all gathered together in a modern mental institution, a city in itself, complete with every facility.
Sit and talk, and
We define a given psychiatric diagnosis and disorder by a list of signs and symptoms. Signs are things that we can observe in other people and that other people could report to us. Symptoms are things that patients report to us.
Any connection between your having been hospitalized for mental illness?
Relax completely and put your mind on going to sleep. Now your eyes are getting heavier, heavier. Now you're in a deep sleep. You have no fear, no anxiety, no fear, no anxiety.
We have so many antidepressants, but we just prescribe them based on their side effect profile more than their efficacy.
Take skin samples from an adult human and turn those into stem cells that were capable of making every cell type in the human body. Now we could make cell types impacted by disease from any person on the planet. That we could then watch disease processes happen in real time. But this technology has proven to be so much more transformative because it allows us to not just edit DNA, but to engineer it. Now we can turn genes on, we can turn genes off. People have been trying to understand what is anatomically different in the brains of patients with psychiatric diseases for a long time. how do smaller neurons impact our thoughts and our behaviors? And that's really the big mystery. The brains of patients are actually smaller. They're smaller because the individual neurons themselves are smaller. So the neurons have fewer branches and they have fewer connections, fewer synapses between each other. And so now we can predict symptoms in patients prior to symptom onset. So you could identify in all newborns, those who are high risk for schizophrenia or autism, and you could begin to treat before symptom onset, not just treat disease, but prevent it. In hindsight, he had schizophrenia, but there was a lot of stigma about that. I think one of the most meaningful days I have had as a scientist was the day that I sat down and I showed him what I was working on. And at the end of it, he looked at me and he said, it's Don something, and he didn't choose to act that way. So he didn't choose to go off of his meds all the time. And I said, no, like, this was the disease. He acted this way because of his disorder. I'd like to think that that gave some insights into his life, into his struggles, and I hope maybe some peace in it too.